Hi guys, I'm Debbie with Debbie J's Crafting Corner. I'll be using products from the February 2024 clubs from Spellbinders for all of my cards today. If you're interested in anything that I use today, you can find them listed and linked in this description box below this video here on YouTube. So let's first start off with the embossing folder. This one is called Swirling Blooms. It has a fun design with all these little flowers. It is really pretty, but feel free to use what's in your stash. I've got a ton of fun embossing folders. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and go through all the things that I've got. We've got Lily Arch that has this lovely lilies image in an arch, and I plan on taking out my essential arches to play with that one too. It's got all these different stamps with different sentiments: spring blessings, celebrate new beginnings, happy Easter, spring greetings, thanks for friendship, you're in my thoughts, life in full bloom, and of course it's got all the fun dies to go along with it. Then we've got the rain boot bouquet. It's just what it says, bunch of flowers and a boot for you to use kind of as your planter. I think that's kind of cool. We've also got the daffodil spray that is for glimmer, and you know how I love my hot foil, so we'll be using that. Then we've got actually a couple of things for Better Press. We've got the Better Press Club, and then we've got this other piece that is a good fit with it. This has this real pretty hummingbird. It's fluttering into spring. So we've got the hummingbird, and then we've got some flowers to go along with it. And then this one is kind of a companion and can go along with it, works great with it. It's called Fluttering Hummingbird. On top of that, we've also got, of course, our wax seal of the month that's also got some real pretty flowers. So I'm going to be using all of these things to create some fun cards. But the main focus that I want to show you guys today is how to use your embossing folders in lots of fun ways. So let's go ahead and get started on that. We're going to start off with just some plain embossing. You can do that on colored cardstock. You can do that on white cardstock. You can do that on basically whatever you want to use. I've done it on, well, you've probably seen this before. I've done embossing on foil. I've done it on white, on different colors, on pattern paper even, or even stamped images. You can do that too. If you do it over a stamped image that you've colored and all, kind of gives it a quilted look, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm just going to take a plain piece of white cardstock and put that inside of my embossing folder. It doesn't really matter which side you decide to go up with. If you are using a pattern paper or something that is colored on one side, you'll have to decide, do you want it to be embossed or do you want it to be debossed? Embossed means you're going to have raised pieces, and debossed basically means that instead of it being raised, you're going to have imprinted pieces. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So we're going to just lay that down into our embossing folder and close that up. And I'm using my Platinum 6 here for my embossing today. I'm going to use the standard platform, the embossing folder, and a plate. And then we're just going to run that right through. Now, if you get cracking on your cardstock, then you may want to spritz it first with some water, because that will help. I don't tend to have that kind of a problem usually because I live in Florida and it is super humid here. So I have more of a problem with things trying to wilt on me than I do with them having to crack. But using a spritz of water will help if you have that kind of problem. So now we're going to take a look, and we've got this lovely texture on there. I mean, this is white, but you can see all of those raised edges. So this side is the embossed side. This side is the debossed side. So it still has that same pretty image, but it looks different because we've got this flat surface with all of the pieces that are basically pressed in, while this side has got everything that is raised. So that is basically the first technique. And like I said, you can do it on different colors. I've done several of those, actually. I've done several different ones. One of the ones, let me see, which one do I want to do? Here's one that I did in green. And then what I did is I did an extra step and added some ink to the top. So you can see that image a bit better than we can on this one. So the way that we did that one, this one I did it with some white pigment ink over green because I wanted that to pop. I wanted the color to be brighter than the background. This other one, I'm going to use, instead of using, you can use pigment ink, you can use, let's do that. Here's some gold delicata. I'm going to try this with some gold delicata. and I'm just going to brush it over the top. So you see, you can see the color a bit better. You can see that design better because we have this going over the top. Now, one thing when you do use pigment inks on there, it is going to take a little bit of time to dry, so you'll want to set this to the side once you get done so that it has time to do that. And you do need to be careful when you're holding onto it because, of course, you're going to wind up with inky fingers. Okay, so now we have this panel that is white with gold over the top. So that's one way that you can use your embossing folders to kind of step it up a little bit. Since I mentioned foil, I'm going to go ahead and do another one that's going to be in this green foil. Figure because we're in spring and we've got flowers and vines and leaves and things, I figured I would go ahead and do this one in green for spring. And this time, because of the type of card, I am going to miss the back of the cardstock just to be on the safe side. It's still probably going to crack. I have had that happen. It happens more often on foiled cardstock for me, but part of that is because it's not solid core. Okay, this one has got a craft backing and a white core. So I'm going to go ahead and run this one through so you can see what it looks like on foiled cardstock, because this is a really fun way to add a bit more to your card as well. And that is just so pretty. Now, if you want to make because this is foil, you're not going to get a really good effect if you go over it with ink, although I suppose you could. My thought is that the ink is probably going to just kind of rub off because of that glossy finish. But one thing you can do, if you want that to show up better, is do this. I used a sander, so these are both basically the same. They're both cut from the same piece of green foil cardstock, but I used a nail sander, to be quite honest with you. So I used a buffing block. This one is actually one from a pack that I think I got at the Dollar Tree a long time ago, and I've had it sitting to the side and haven't actually used it much. So I went ahead and just sanded off the foil off of the top layer of all of that card. You could do a little bit or a lot or just dress it just as much as you want to, but I think these are two really fun ways to just give it a little bit extra. So this is my second attempt on this, because the first time around it didn't work. So I tried it again and I've gotten it to work. What I'm doing is I'm adding embossing powder to our embossed panel, okay? And what I'm finding I'm having to do is do a lot of anti-static powder. So I've got a ton of it. You can see it all over my desk. I also tried it with clear embossing powder and not sure exactly what happened there, or if it was an issue with that. I don't know. It may be that my ink pad is not inked up enough. But I do know that my suede shoes from Catherine Pooler is. I know it's the same color basically, but that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going over the top. It can also see where I've added the ink. So that's one reason why I like using colored embossing ink a lot of times when I'm doing this kind of thing. Now I am getting some, because I'm putting a little bit too much pressure, I am getting some in between, but that's okay. So I'm going over the top here. And I'm only doing a section of the panel at a time, so I've got something to hold on to. Then I'm going to put some of my Ranger embossing powder over the top. And because I used so much powder, it's not sticking in between there. So that is exactly what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and spread this over that area that I just inked up. And I'm overlapping some of it that I've already done, just in case, right? And now I'm going to heat it up. So what this is going to do, it's going to add some color just like the ink alone would do, but it's also going to add some of that shine because it is going to be that melted embossing powder. Okay, and now you can see that fun shine there. So next I'm going to do what Simon Hurley called color palette embossing. I've seen this before. I don't know what other names it's gone by, but I love the effect. So what I've done is I pulled out some of my Simon Hurley inks, and I am feeling on the inside of the embossing folder to find the part that feels flat. This feels flat. This feels like it's very bumpy. So this is the part that is going to imprint into our card, and this is basically going to be the one that, let me pull out one of these. This is the one that's going to have the flat part in the back and then the raised edges, okay? So it's got a big surface of the flat that you can feel before it goes through the embossing folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add direct to the folder some of my Simon Hurley inks. I'm going to start with Slippery When Wet, and I'm just smearing it all over the place. I'm also starting with the lightest because I don't want, if there's going to be any kind of ink transfer, I don't want it to go onto the lightest one because that's going to be the most obvious. If it goes onto the darker one, it's not going to really show up as much. It's not going to be as big of a deal. So now I'm coming in with the red, which I believe this one is Bee Sting. Yes, this one is Bee Sting. And then I'm going to come in with some Remember Me. And I am kind of going rainbow order here. I may want to come back in with some more of the Bee Sting. Not 100% sure. But now I'm coming in with Later Gator down at the bottom. So I think because the panel is so big, I'm going to actually do 2 panels. Okay. Next, I'm going to give it a light mist with some water. That's going to kind of make it run together and blend a little bit better. So it gives a little bit of a watercolor effect. Just a light spritz there, and then grabbing out a couple pieces of white cardstock. Okay, so I am going to lay them on the other side of the panel. Okay, laying them down. Get the fuzzball off of there. And then we're going to close it, and then we'll run the whole thing. Actually, that one is a shimmer. Wonder how that would look. This is actually a shimmer cardstock. You can see it's got a little bit of a shine. I'm going to go ahead and do that. That would be not quite the same as, say, foil cardstock. And this is just some stuff that I picked up a couple of years ago at Michael's that I really haven't used much of. So we're going to close it and then hold it steady so it doesn't shift. Don't want to shift the color around while I put it in my sandwich. And you could absolutely do just 1 panel vertical. Instead, I'm going to have 2 horizontal, and they're going to only be basically 2 of the colors instead of being more. But I think it's still going to look pretty cool. And there we go. So we have got the fun color in the background, and this one, as I mentioned, already has a shimmer, so it's got a little bit of a shine to it. This one is a little bit more matte, and you've got that little bit of movement for the colors. You could always add more water, and then you'd get more movement, but I still think that those turned out pretty cool. So I went back and I did another panel, this time with the vertical, and added a bit more of the water. I think that looks pretty cool, but I'm going to do an extra step. I'm going to add in some more ink over the top of the colors that we've already done. So it's just going to add just a little bit more, right? So there we go. I think that looks kind of fun. I am noticing, for whatever reason, it almost looks like the ink is slightly offset from the emboss. And for that reason, I looked at the back to make sure it wasn't where it shifted. And no, it didn't shift, but it looks like the ink shifted as it went through. That's probably because of the little bit of water that I sprayed on there. And I think that is kind of a fun effect. Okay, so yeah, I kind of go crazy when I start doing this kind of thing because I love making the panels. This time around, I am going to be using them, though, for my cards. So I went ahead and embossed a few more panels. And what we're going to play with now is some Lunar paste and some Solar paste. So I did 2 in white and 2 in black. So I've got a couple of different techniques, and this is going to be really quick, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time, so that's good. I've got 3 different colors of Lunar paste I'm going to use on the first one. So we've got Slippery When Wet, which you know I love. We've got Love Struck, which is the new reddish pink color. And then we have got Breakup Blue, which is Simon's new blue color. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of each of these basically onto a palette. This is just one of my Spellbinders plates, and it's clear and it'll clean up easy. So I'm just going to add a little bit on there of each of those colors. Love Struck. Such a pretty color. And then we've got our Breakup Blue. And I did try this one out a little while ago and learned, do not use a larger brayer. You're going to want to use a small brayer, otherwise you're not going to be able to have enough room for all of your colors to be on the same panel. So here's the example. This is the one that I started off with. Okay, so I've got this big swatch of dark green, and it didn't go all the way. It's basically, I was using a brayer that was this big instead of one that's this big. I needed to do a lot smaller. Anyways, so what I'm going to do this time is I am going to be using a smaller brayer, and we're going to pick up some of that color. You don't want it to be too thick, which is one reason why I'm trying to spread my colors around a little bit on this palette. Okay, and now I'm just going to go over, I'm going to start with the flat side. So this is the raised side. This is the emboss side. This one is the deboss side. This is the one where it was all pressed in. So I'm going to go over this lightly, over the top, and you'll see it's going to pick up the raised flat edges, right? So we've got a little bit of an overlap turning into an orange between the Slippery When Wet and Love Struck. Look how lovely. So I'll come down a little bit further here. So now I'm picking up some of the Breakup Blue. And we're going to do that other edge. And then where they overlap will be like this lavender purple. Now I did get a bit too much on there, but that's fine. It did go into the crevices, but that is okay. That's why I'm trying to get decent coverage on there, but not go too heavy so I don't get too much of that. Okay. So this I think is lovely. So I'm going to set that one to the side and we're going to let it dry. So this one I'm going to do with the embossed side up. And since I already have some blue on my brayer, let's go ahead and pick up some more of that. Try to even it up on my brayer. And we're going to go over the raised edges. Whenever you're using your brayer, you do want to pick it up so that you're not going back and forth, because then you're just going to get too much in one area. It's not really going to cover the entire roller. Okay, so we're going to come in the center and do a little bit of an overlap. Okay, now I'm going to wipe it off again and do the same thing. This time we're going to go with that Slippery When Wet. Which, the Slippery When Wet is drying the fastest because that one is my oldest color. And it is a little bit dry anyway. And it looks like I'm going to need a little bit more of it because, like I said, it is a little bit dried out. So I'm just going to add a little bit there, and then we can wet it to do some cleanup onto some separate cardstock after we get done. But I didn't really want to take the chance of it not giving as nice and pretty of coverage on the rest of this panel by trying to wet that. You absolutely could though. Okay, so now we've got that gold color coming in, and I'm just gently going over the top here. Next, we're going to take in, got some plain white cardstock here, and we're going to spray this down with some water, wet it a little bit, and we're just going to smush it on here. And the places that it's thicker on your palette, of course, is going to have thicker coverage on this panel. But this is just a cleanup panel that you could use for lots of different things. You could do die cutting out of it. You could use it as a background and add something else over the top, that sort of thing. So I'm going to set that one to dry, and I'll do another one because I've still got plenty of solar paste there, right? Okay, and now we're going to clean up the rest of it before it has a chance to really dry. Okay, I have to admit, the reason I wanted to try it with the solar paste is because I loved how it turned out with the lunar paste, and I have not tried it with the solar paste yet. So we're going to do the exact same thing again, this time using the solar paste, which you can tell looks really, really white. However, it shows up really nicely on dark cardstock. So that's the reason for the black cardstock here. This one is called Cross My Heart. So we're going to just add some of that. I'm going to try not to put down quite as much as I did of the solar paste. Goodness, I used a lot of that. Doesn't look like I used a lot, but it did go a long way, right guys? And I am also going to be wiping it off onto a paper towel in between because the colors are different. They look alike, but they're not. So we have our pink, and then we've got some purple. This one is called Royal Flush. So I'll bring it down about halfway. Okay. And then our last one is called Beluga. So this one is our dark blue, or medium to dark blue. Okay, so like I said, they all look alike, but they're not. So we're going to start off with the flat side, with the debossed side, picking up some of that Cross My Heart. And can you see that pretty pink tint that's over the black? And it really shows nicely in the light. So I think that is going to be lovely. Okay, so we've got that one. Next, we're going to come in with the purple, or Royal Flush. Okay, now you can see it looks a little bit bluer, right? But when you see it in the light, you're going to see the difference. It's not going to be blue, it's going to be purple. This is so pretty. Okay. Next, we're going to come in with the Beluga. Okay. So it really depends on which angle you look at it from. From where I'm sitting, I can see the purple really, really vividly here, so it looks much nicer in person. It really depends on your lighting as to whether or not you can see it. But even this direction, you can see the colors are a little bit different. It is really stunning in person, though. So we've got that one done. I'm going to set that one to the side, and it's mostly dry already, guys. It's almost all dry. So now I'm going to do the same thing. This time we're going to have the raised piece, okay? So let's start off with the Beluga, since I already have that blue on my roller here. And it's just going to be those raised edges. That is just so pretty. And what's nice with when you're using a brayer like this is it only is touching that top level. It's not going down into the crevices. So you have to kind of push down to get in there, which means if you try to use say a foam applicator or something, you're probably going to get some of the paste down into those crevices that you don't really want. Really, of course, depends on what kind of look you're going for. because that would be a real fun distress look too. Okay, so now we're coming in with the purple in the middle. That I know from that angle it does look kind of blue too, but believe me, it is purple. I can see it from this angle. I'll try to do a good job on the picture so that you guys can see it once everything is done. Okay, and now we're going to come back in with the pink, which is Cross My Heart. And I'm only flipping it around so it's easier for me to do where you can see it. And isn't that stunning? Love that. Oh my goodness. Okay, I've got enough here that I think I'm going to turn off the camera and I'm going to make some more. So I'll have some additional panels because this is just too pretty. And I will do some more cleanup with what's left, but I do want to do some more panels first. Okay, that was a lot of panels and a lot of embossing, but that's only the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other ways that you can do it, but I don't think anyone could actually put them all into one video. And this was kind of a long video. So what comes next is I am over the next few days going to be posting some more videos showing how I use them. I gave you a sneak peek of some of those projects in this video. So be sure to check back on those. If you want to see some more videos where I'm using other Spellbinders products, check out the playlist here. And you guys have a wonderful day. I would love to see what you guys make. So if you use some embossing folders using any of the techniques that I did today, please share that over in my Discord or in my Facebook group. The links to everything are down below. And you guys have a great day. Bye, guys.